Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Happy Easter to everybody in the United States of America and around the world. This is a political article. Massive civil fraud verdict against Trump gets frosty reception at New York Appeals Court. Let's listen to this right now. We'll get to why. Every time I do one of these segments, it goes from 400 billion to 500 million, now over $1 billion. Hit subscribe. Listen to this.
You're pointing to Ernst & Young, you're pointing to First American. Ernst & Young, you're dealing with the collapse of Lehman Brothers. First American, you're dealing with an action brought against an appraiser who overvalued properties at the behest of a lender, perpetrating a scheme to induce unsophisticated consumers into taking out home loans that they could not afford. It hardly seems that justifies bringing an action to protect Deutsche Bank against President Trump, which is what you have here. I mean, you've got two really sophisticated parties in which no one lost any money. And that was the point of my initial question. Every case that you cite involved where there was damage to consumers, damage to the marketplace. You've got a scheme to get unsophisticated consumers to take out home loans. You got a collapse of Lehman Brothers. You don't have anything like that here.
Well, first of all, Your Honor.
Then the New York, Letitia James's legal counsel then says, well, you know, Your Honor, it really did hurt Deutsche Bank. No, it didn't. Deutsche Bank defended and testified on behalf of Trump. So hit subscribe. This is huge. These segments are doing very well for a reason. President Trump is going to get, first, it was a $400 million settlement, or the $400 million fine, 450 or so. That's out. That's going to be out. That's essentially already out the window, but that will be out the window with a huge New York Appeals Court victory. The New York Appeals Court did not, were not convinced that Trump deceived Deutsche Bank. Now you have the issue, how do you get $1 billion? Not only do you have a new economic system for the U.S. dollar called the Mar-a-Lago Accords, you can look, ladies and gentlemen, at the value of the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, part of the Historical Hotels of America, over $52 million today. What happened there? Well, in 1944, Mount Washington hosted the Bretton Woods International Monetary Conference. Okay, obviously, if it's part of U.S. history, it's going to increase exponentially in value. But listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Another reason victory is a huge billion-dollar victory is in the cards. We'll get to the billion in a second.
And you're valuing it at what? She said 18 million.
Well, I mean, if we take a look at Mar-a-Lago, let's start here, Maria. The guest house alone is worth 75 to 100 million. If you take a look at Palm Beach Island waterfront land, right? And keep in mind, we're a small island. We're only 12 miles long, half a mile wide. So it's not a big market. Scarcity is a real thing for us. We only have 2,500 homes on this island. So if you take into account waterfront land pricing, which the average is about $1,600 per foot. We've seen some sales on the ocean as high as $2,000 per foot. But, you know, if you take a look at Mar-a-Lago, it's 20 acres. And, for example, we just sold the most expensive property ever sold in the U.S., a private island here in Palm Beach for $152 million. Most expensive sales so far in the country this year. That went for $152 million. If you do some very simple math, $152 million times 10, which equates to the 20 acres of Mar-a-Lago, you're at $1.5 billion. That's not taking into account the 100,000 square feet of house that he has on the land. It's similar frontage. So that's $500 million of house. So $1.5 billion of land plus $500 million of house, you're at $2 billion, in my opinion. Even if you short, you know, say that it's really, you know, more than 1.5 or 1.75, the 18 million evaluation was so far off base and clearly done by someone who has no understanding of Palm Beach Island.
The entire argument, you can watch the total appeals court deliberations yourselves, but if you go to the actual appeals court deliberation, okay, you can see the justices are skeptical. why are the justices skeptical? Why is this going to be a huge financial, political victory for President Trump and vindication of President Trump, especially with Attorney General Letitia James dealing with allegations of actual mortgage fraud and potential insurance fraud? Okay, an actual criminal referral and investigation or criminal investigation with Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice looking into Letitia James for potentially falsifying loan documents and lying about the number of units in a New York property and not living in New York and allegedly having a principal residence in Virginia. Okay, where then she lied potentially on the loan documents there. Okay, you're talking not just about mortgage fraud, but there's also potential insurance fraud because you're paying lower rates for a unit with less, for a property with less units in New York, and also if your principal residence is in Virginia, you're paying lower insurance rates and property tax in Virginia. But this is the New York Appeals Court. And then the rebuttal from the Attorney General's legal counsel is the following, but then you get some more pushback from the appeals court.
The statute doesn't require that. What's
I am breaking up with.
It does have to have a capacity about how and when
I went back and read the bill jackets. The common thread was always we need greater power. The AG needs greater powers as the people's lawyer to protect consumers, civil rights, and the environment. And so again, with that sort of historical backdrop to this law, how do we draw a line or at least put up some guardrails to know when the AG is operating well within her admittedly broad sphere of 6312, and when she is going into an area that wasn't intended for her jurisdiction?
Sure, Your Honor. Well,
So obviously the members of the Supreme Court of the state of New York, okay, and the appellate division understand that there's politics involved. They also understand, of course, that people like Deutsche Bank and billionaire real estate investors and anyone who owns real estate in New York, especially people who own millions upon millions of dollars in real estate and work with banks, they can be targeted by a Republican or, in this case, as almost always, a Democrat, if they don't fall in line politically. That would move billions upon billions of dollars of wealth from New York, because people who own billions in real estate or millions in real estate aren't going to want to roll the dice and potentially risk being targeted politically under laws that are not meant to go after billionaires who have negotiated deals with banks that actually wanted their business. Deutsche Bank actually wanted Trump's business. In addition to the fact that you have Mar-a-Lago, like Bretton Woods, like the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, over $52 million today. Mar-a-Lago being 1 to 1.5 billion, just based on the comps and based on the area, and the fact that it's already been Politico, Reuters. Everybody has already talked about the fact that the appeals court is not buying Letitia James' first story that Trump tried to create some kind of Lehman Brothers situation. If anything, what Letitia James is accused of actually points to hurting the market. What Trump is accused of is a novel, twisted, warped theory that because he negotiated with Deutsche Bank and because he somehow inflated his net worth to receive lower interest rates, when Deutsche Bank actually stated that nothing Trump said influenced their ultimate decision.
About how Donald Trump's bankers completely blew up the Letitia James, Arthur Engoron case against the former president. Blew it up. That's right. Couple Deutsche Bank folks who have been lending hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump and to the Trump organization down through the years absolutely destroyed this stupid left-wing New York socialist attack on Mr. Trump. Now, the brilliant Jonathan Turley is going to be here later toward the back end of the show, and he'll give his erudite analysis from a legal standpoint. But in non-legal terms, a number of Deutsche Bank employees, this is the story, they told the New York judge that they made millions of dollars from Mr. Trump's businesses and saw no fraud in the loans they approved. They told the judge that Trump repaid his loans with interest. There was never any concern that Trump defrauded the bank. And they unveiled a parade of emails going back years where the bankers heaped compliments and praise for the Trumps and their businesses.
Literally everything that you've heard from Democrats about Trump regarding this and a whole bunch of other stories has been false. Hit subscribe to this channel. Huge, huge political victory in the appeals coming imminently.